Since 2018, I've bought 11 properties and built a £3.24 million property portfolio, but it literally took years and years to get to that stage. If I could start over, this is the 7-step process I would use to start a property business in 2023. Step 1, strategy. When I started, I thought all you had to do was find a property in bad condition, upgrade the property by doing some sort of refurb, and you would make a lot of money. If you buy a property and you just do a simple refurb, it actually doesn't add that much value. These are literally the easiest strategies you can start with, which make a lot of money. The first thing you can do is buy a 1-bedroom property like the one I bought in West Hampstead in London. And so as you come in, you have a bedroom on one side, you have a bathroom, you have a living room. You need to have a property which has a separate kitchen. What you then do is you then move the kitchen into the living room, which makes an open plan living room, and then you convert the kitchen into the second bedroom. That adds a ton of value because 2 bedrooms generally are worth more than a 1 bedroom. That property I bought for £303,750. The entire cost, which included the stamp duty, the refurb, legals, financing, literally everything, came to £84,883. So the total cost was £388,633. But then once the property was converted into a 2-bedroom property, it was revalued at £450,000, which made a profit of just more than £60,000. The second strategy you can use is converting 2-bedroom houses into 3-bedroom houses. Let's just go on this first one here. What a lot of people have done in this area is you can simply just take this bathroom, turn it into a bedroom, and then move the bathroom here. It would be a much smaller bathroom. It'll be more of a shower room rather than a bathroom. But again, it would convert the property into a 3-bedroom property, which would then add a lot of value. The next strategy after that is converting houses into flats. So this is a 3-bedroom terrace house I bought during COVID. And so the plan was to turn it into 2 flats. There was 1 flat upstairs and 1 flat downstairs. So I bought this for £265,000. The entire cost on this project, including the financing, stamp duty, legals, everything, came to around £85,000. So once the property was converted into the flats, it was revalued at £410,000. That also made around a £60,000 profit by splitting the property into 2. The next strategy you can use by converting a building into multiple flats. In 2021, I bought this mixed-use commercial building. Downstairs, it was a clinic, and upstairs, it was a 3-bedroom flat. We ended up planning to convert that into 4 flats. And so we had 2 flats downstairs, we had 2 flats upstairs. We had to do a side extension in order to add some more space. Other than that, there wasn't that much structural works. It was just stripping out the building completely, painting, rewiring, new plumbing, flooring, literally everything. We bought that for £600,000. The project still hasn't finished yet. It's still ongoing. I don't know the full numbers yet. And when it finishes, I'll make a new video on that one. The fifth way you can make money is by finding properties like this. So if you look at this property here, it sits on a huge plot of land. So it has the original house, which is relatively big, but it also has all this space on the side. So it has this much area on the side. Now, what you could do, you can demolish the garage and you can get planning permission for another house on the side. When you buy a house, the land which comes with that, if you can then do something with the land hasn't really cost you anything because it comes just part of the house. Fine, the price of the house might be slightly more because it comes with a lot of land, but it's not going to be that much higher compared to if you were to then go and just buy a piece of land by itself. At this stage, I would pick one of the strategies. If I'm starting out and I have no experience, I would do what I did do when I started out, which was the easiest strategy out of all of them, which is buying 1-bedroom properties, converting them into 2-bedroom properties, and making a huge margin just by moving a kitchen around. Step number 2 is finding an area where that strategy works. Go onto this website called commutetimemap.com/map. I want to find the areas I can get to relatively quickly because everyone's got limited time. What I don't want to do is find an area which is 7 hours away, and even though that area might theoretically work, how am I going to get there? It's going to take way too long. So that wouldn't really work for me. I'll put in an area. So I live in Stevenage, and then I'll put in by public transport, and I'll say maximum 1 hour. If you zoom out, that is now showing you all the areas from Stevenage where you can get to within 1 hour. And by the way, you can switch this to car if you prefer driving. So now this will give you a lot of areas where you can get to within 1 hour. So naturally, the first place I would start is Stevenage because I live there. Select 1-bedroom properties, 1-bedroom flats. Click find properties. What you'll notice with Stevenage is if your strategy is to turn 1 bedroom into 2 bedrooms, most of the flats in Stevenage are basically new builds. And when you have new build properties, they already have an open plan living room. They don't have separate kitchens, so this is not going to work. What happens is you have a strategy, you look at your area, let's say the strategy doesn't work, and then people conclude, oh, well, this strategy doesn't work because I can't find any properties. The reality is that strategy doesn't work in that area. It works as a whole, it might work in a different area, but it doesn't work in that area. So when I was starting out, I initially looked in Stevenage and there were a few opportunities, but not that many. So I then had to find another area. If I go back to this, and especially using the public transport map, the next easiest place to get to for me was central London. So if I change this to London Bridge, I'll just go lowest to highest. In London Bridge, you typically get a lot of these ex-council 1-bedroom properties, and these ex-council properties always have a separate kitchen, and they're normally pretty decent size. This one's 44 square meters, and so turning a 1-bed into a 2-bed in central London is very easy. And so that strategy actually works really well. So the second thing I would do is finalize my area based on the fact that one, is close to get to, and second, it's got the type of properties I want for my strategy to work. Step number 3 is finding properties which work based on the strategy and based on the area. You flick through Rightmove relatively quickly and find properties where that works. So if I open this one up here, look at the floor plan. Yep, it's got a separate kitchen, which I can turn into a bedroom, move the kitchen here. Now that's a 2-bedroom property. Once you have a lot of clarity in terms of exactly what you're looking for, finding properties just becomes much easier once you have defined exactly what you're looking for. Now, step number 4 is getting quotes from your builders. So first thing you have to do is create a schedule of works, all the works which have to be done, works required, and you can then maybe separate it by the room if you wanted to. With this property, you would need new flooring. I generally like to put in spotlights. They just look a lot nicer than just having one light. Even though the kitchen is in actually pretty good condition, you would need a new kitchen because you would have to move the kitchen into the living room. You would need a new kitchen. You would need a new bathroom probably. Let's have a look at the bathroom actually. The bathroom in this one is actually not in that bad condition. So let's take this one out. The windows, generally they seem fine. The sockets are actually where they're supposed to be, I believe. And depending on if the property needs a new rewire, maybe you could do that. Even the doors actually in this property look in pretty good condition, so I probably wouldn't change the doors. There's going to be some plumbing to move a kitchen, and there's probably going to be a few more things, right? Depending on the property you're looking at, maybe new radiators, new boiler, rewiring, plumbing, those sort of things. So you essentially create a list of everything you need to do in a property. Then generally I would get a quote from 3 different builders to get an exact price of how much the entire work is going to cost me. So when I was doing a lot of these projects in London, if you look at this property in Battersea Park, it was in pretty bad condition. The kitchen was gone, the bathroom was gone, but it was completely modernized, and that cost about £30,000. Step number 5 is arranging the finance. I would get the link for the property and I would send an email to my broker who arranges all the financing. So typically with these properties, I buy them on bridging finance. What that means is imagine a mortgage but for 12 months, 18 months rather than for 25 years. And then I will do the property up, so I'll turn it into a 2-bedroom property. And then at the end, you can then work out if you want to hold the property for the long run and rent it out, or if you want to sell the property and just flip it. At this stage, I will email my broker saying, hey, Amadeus, I've found this investment property. Could you let me know if I can get bridging finance on this property, what the rates will be, and how much money can I get from the lender? And then you sign off. That's basically all you need to know at this stage. Now, if you don't currently have a broker, and the first time you speak to a broker, they will ask for a lot of details, like for example, your income and fact finds and all those sort of things. But once your broker has all that information, then all you simply have to do is just send them a link to the property so they can see what you're buying, and they will essentially let you know how much the bridge lender is willing to lend you, what sort of rates, for what sort of time period. And so that will give you a very good indication of exactly how much it's going to cost you to borrow money. Now, step number 6 is deal analysis. Now we need to work out, does the deal actually even work? Does it actually even make any money? When it comes down to it, there's only 2 things you need to know. One is how much is it going to cost you to do the project, which we already know because we have a quote of £30,000. The only other thing you have to work out, which is normally the hard part, is working out, well, what is the property going to be worth once you have turned it into the 2-bedroom property? So I've got a video on this, which is a deal analysis video, which I'll link below, and that spends like an entire hour going through exactly how to do this, but I'll just show you the quick way. This property is £400,000, about 42 square meters. It's 1 bed. Obviously we'll turn it into a 2-bed. So scroll down on Rightmove, click this thing here which says property sale history, and then there's a thing which says go to nearby sold property. If you click onto this, that will show you all the properties which sold within the area. You want to go within the last year, so select flat. Now you can see all the properties which were sold within that postcode. When you're trying to work out the end value, you generally look at up to a half-a-mile radius, but the closer you can be, the better. So I'll select within a quarter-mile radius, so at least this way we're getting the properties which are as close as possible to the one we're looking at. So the first one we have here is a 2-bedroom flat for £432,000. So let's open this up. Let's look at the condition. In pretty decent condition. This sold for £432,000, which is not great given that this one's for £400,000, but let's look at the building. So this is a block of apartments, whereas this is a house which was converted into probably 2 or 3 flats. This is a bit more desirable. So this is a decent comparable, but it's not an exact comparable. Essentially, you keep scrolling. Now you have a 2-bedroom here which sold for £555, but we don't fully know exactly what type of property this is since we don't have the pictures. But essentially what you would do is you would go through all of these properties, work out which one is as close to this as possible, and then see what the property value is for a 2-bedroom. Now, like I said, I've got a 1-hour video on this which goes through different different ways of finding comparables, different platforms. That will really help you bed down exactly how much it's going to worth. But just for the sake of this video, we'll assume that this 2-bed is for 432, but the building's not as desirable. This one's for 555. Actually, you can see that in 2017 it was sold as a new build. So this is a new build, but we don't really know how big the building is. But let's just say, for argument's sake, it's worth somewhere in between 432 and 555. The property is worth about £500,000 as a 2-bedroom. Now, when I was doing my 1-bedroom into 2-bedroom strategy, the first one I did, I bought for 237. It was then revalued at £320,000, which is £100,000 more. I bought one in London Bridge for £330,000, which was revalued at 450, so that's £120,000 more. In Vauxhall, it went from 290 to 390, which is £100,000. In West Hampstead, it went from 303 to 450, which is £150,000. So getting an uplift of £100,000 isn't the hardest thing in the world with a lot of this stuff. Let's just assume it's worth about £500,000 for the sake of this example, and so we can do the numbers. Now you know what the property is going to be worth at the end. Now what you have to do is work out, well, what is your goal with this property? Are you going to hold this, and once the value is added, are you then going to refinance the property? Which just means that once the property value has gone up, you get a new mortgage with a higher loan in order to get a lot of your money back? Or are you going to flip this property and try to sell it for a margin? The numbers will be based on what your goal is with this particular property. So if you're trying to flip a property, essentially, if you can make a profit margin of, let's say, around 10 to 20%, then that's generally considered pretty good. Now, some people will say, I have to make at least a 20% margin for that to be a good deal, but it doesn't really work that way. Like, your margin reflects how risky something is. If you were turning a 1-bed into a 2-bed, it's generally considered not that risky because you're not doing that much. All you're doing is moving a kitchen around. Whereas if you were, for example, buying a house and it has some land on the side and you were going to build a new house, there's a lot more risk involved. The more complex the project is, the more of a margin you should have. The simpler the project is, you can generally get away with a less of a margin. So if I was looking to flip a property like this, having a 10% profit margin would generally be pretty good. And if you were looking to hold this property for the long run and your plan was to buy, add value, and refinance, just to explain the refinancing further, all you're simply doing is you're buying a property, adding a lot of value by turning into a 2-bed. And once the property value goes up, you then go to a different bank and you say, hey, come and value this property, and I want a 75% loan of the new value. Because that 75% loan of the new value is going to be much higher than when you bought it, because the property was worth less, you end up getting a lot of the money back because you get a new loan which is much higher than the previous loan, and so that is how you end up releasing a lot of your money. When I bought West Hampstead for £303,000, I put up a 25% deposit. I had to pay stamp duty, I had to pay legals, I had to pay financing costs, I had to pay for the refurb. All in, it cost me about £150,000 cash. But once the property value went up to 450 and I got a new 75% loan on that property, I got about £100,000 back on the refinance. So in the end, the property only really cost me about £50,000 as opposed to £150,000. So in that situation, I've got back about 2/3 of my money. I think even if you can get half of your money back from a refinance, then that's generally pretty good. So what I would do is I would open up my deal analyzer. All you have to do is really know 2 numbers, and the rest of it is relatively generic and it doesn't really change that much. For example, you typically tend to get a 75% loan to value and the rates are pretty much the same. So you don't really have to do too much here. You don't have to go through every single one. All you have to do is change these figures here. For example, in this situation, so I would input the asking price, which is £400,000. To do that, you have to click on the valuation tab down here and then put in the asking price here, 400,000. Now the purchase price, let's say this is a bit of a buyer's market and we can negotiate on the price. Let's say we get this property for £370,000. Now the total refurb we said will cost £30,000, and the GDV, which basically just means what is the final value of the property going to be once it's converted, we have to input here. To do that, go into the valuation tab and then under GDV, just put in the new price, which in this case we said was £500,000. By the way, just a quick side note, anyone watching this, if you know how to code or develop things and you can find a way of turning this into more of a simpler app, then you get in touch with me and we can try to make something work so it's just much easier for people to use. You have put in the purchase price, the refurb cost, and then the GDV. When you scroll down, this will show you all the final metrics in this case. So with this property, if you bought it for $370 and you spent £30,000 on the refurb and you had all these other costs, then essentially what this analyzer is saying is that your total costs end up being about £460,000. The total amount of money you need to do this project is £185,000. The profit you would make is just under £40,000 by turning a 1-bed into a 2-bed, which is a profit margin of 8%. 3.5%. That is on the flip situation. If you were buying and holding property, what that means is you have spent £185,000 cash. When you've added value and now you've refinanced, you have got £100,000 back. And so your money left in, which technically isn't really like an official financial term, but it's just a simpler way of explaining this. Your money left in is £85,000. By the time this is all said and done, you've spent 185, got 100 back, and this property has only cost you £85,000. As opposed to if you were to buy this the traditional way using just a normal mortgage and just renting it out, then it would cost you 185, which is significantly more. So I would say that's pretty good. Obviously, we haven't done all the other numbers like how much it's going to rent for, what your mortgage rates are, all those sort of things. So you can input all of that in this sheet here, and it will tell you how much money you're going to make on a monthly basis, on a yearly basis, what your return on investment is, all those sort of things. Step number 7 is offer. There's a lot of conversation about BMV, which just means below market value, that in order to make a deal work, you have to get it below market value, and that if you pay the asking price for a property, then that's not a good deal because, well, you have to get a discount. That can be true at times, but that's not always necessarily the case. What I think is more important is first working out what sort of profit margin do you want. So let's just keep it simple, and let's say you say, well, I'll do a deal if I can make at least 50,000. Right now, we're making £39,000. However, if you were to get the property for, let's say, £360,000. So let's switch this out. Now, if you scroll to the end, your profit margin becomes £50,914. In order to make this deal work for you, the property which is on for £400,000, you need to get a 10% discount and buy it for £360,000. And if you can buy it for £360,000, then you know that's going to be a good deal for you. When I bought the West Hampstead property, that was initially on for £365,000. I ended up buying it for £303,000, which was a discount of around 18%. When I bought the property in Battersea Park, that property initially was on for £265,000. I bought it for £237,000. Which is about a 10% discount. But at the same time, I bought properties full price. So when I bought my house, which I turned into 2 flats, that was on for $265,000, and I paid $265,000 because at $265,000 my numbers still made sense, and so therefore I didn't necessarily need a discount. Now I wouldn't offer $360,000 because there's going to be some negotiation. Maybe you start from $350,000 and then you go to $355,000, and then maybe you try to settle on $360,000. And let's say you have an offer accepted. At that stage, the estate agent, in this case Dexter's, will get in touch with you and they'll say, could you send them the detail of your solicitor who's going to be dealing with this exchange? And so you would simply pass on your solicitor's details. If you don't have a solicitor and you're looking for one, I'll leave the details of my solicitor in the description so you can get in touch with them and use them if you want. You'll send your solicitor's details to the agent. The agent will then get in touch with the solicitor and they will essentially start the conveyancing process, which is basically the buying process. By the end of that process, you end up owning the property and completing on that transaction. So if you follow those 7 steps, you can quickly work out your strategy, your area, the type of deals you're looking for, how to find them, and essentially how to start a property business in 2023.